Right. Alright, this out here we're gonna do. Oh, let's do a brown eye. Yeah, I think this will look pretty cool as a brown eye. So we're gonna look at brown's orange. Let's look at it as orange, right? Because if you look at the color wheel and color theory, you take those orange colors. Let's say here's orange right here, and this is on this side. You're adding this. Make sure this is in focus. I'm really zoomed in. There we go. So on this side, this is orange. You're adding white here. These are the grays. Sorry for the reflection, but this is the when you add black to this orange, you get this brown, and that's where the browns come from. And then the siennas live over here closer to the reds. So we're gonna take that into consideration as we're moving around in here. I'm just throwing a little bit of highlight in there with this, kind of getting from that orange into more of a red orange. It's just something different in there. It's not really meaning a lot other than it's some sparkles, right? So I got that taken care of there, and I'm going to go in with my orange, and I'm going to just kind of give everybody a glaze. And we got that light reflecting here. It's almost like she's in front of a window, you know? So you can kind of see that window look, something off in the distance. So I'm just going to lightly come in and start glazing in this orange into these areas, because we're aiming for brown, right? And it's going to take just a few little there we go. It's going to take a few layers to get there, right? So we're gonna push some orange into here and go ahead and touch into some of that yellow there, and we can push it into that yellow orange a little bit brighter. So we're just adding in some of this orange, kind of glaze this in over here. Same principles though. Over here we're going to have that light escaping the eye over here, as we did on the other video, because the light goes into the eye, and then sometimes it needs a place to escape, and it's always nice to add a little bit of bedazzle to the picture. So now I'm coming around here with this orange, pushing. And you might think, well, why don't you just go in, take your brown pencil and go in? You can do that. I like a little bit more, in my pictures than just the old brown. I like to take it back to a primary or a secondary color if I can, and then build it up myself with the black. And you could, instead of using black, you could probably come in with a dark brown over this orange. It'll still hold some of that effect that you're looking for. So I'm just buzzing around now. I'm just going to glaze some of this black in, and then some of the areas where it's really light, this black is gonna be more gray. I'm just getting some color. You know, we're building up the color, messing around, run around these areas here. I'm gonna try to stay out of this area. I shouldn't have went that close. Let me darken this up right here. There we go. But anytime you can do that, anytime you can, if you understand your color, anytime you can go in and grab a primary or secondary color to achieve what you're going for, I advise it, because it gives you your color so much more, you know. So I'm not worried too much about, you know, trying to press in here too much. I'm just trying to give it something. And there'll be a few areas there. There we go. Let's go back to our orange now, and give it a little work with these sharp tips. I'm just going to work around this outer perimeter here. Let it mingle in with that black pencil. There we go. There's a big eye too. Jeez. So you got there's going to be room for a lot of detail in this picture. We'll pull out as much as we can. But I kind of want to keep it basic, you know? There we go. Now, on the color wheel, the opposite of orange is that blue. So if you want to add another level of dimension to this, we can come in with this blue and start working it in. Kind of push that, mainly in the darker areas, you know, kind of cool off that orange because it's really hot. Just kind of cool it off a little bit. Some of these areas up here don't need to be warm. So just kind of cool it off a little bit. There we go. You'll notice where this hits that that yellow that we put out there, it'll give it a little punch. So don't be scared to get into that yellow a little bit. There we go. Also remember where when your black comes in, let me get here. You want to hug out here and bring it over. You want it in these areas. So I'm just going to kind of glaze it in right here. I'm going to start making some gestures here. There we go. Just a little bit more. Start paying attention to some of my values here. Where this is darker down here. You can see that lighter area there. So let's start working on around here. Depending on how black or how dark or how brown you want this is how much of this black pencil you want to press into the page here. Try to focus in on that right there. Now I'm starting to bring some of these contour lines with this black, separating out a few things here. There we go. Pull a little bit more. Keep on rolling around and then kind of bring it up in. Keep bringing it in. And we're just going to go back and forth until you get that brown that you're looking for. Play around in that yellow a little bit. There we go. There we go. Let's go ahead and keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, once you start saturating, getting a lot of color in here, now what you want to start doing is picking out, hey, where is it too orange? Like right here, it's way too orange to be where it is. So let's just go in and find some of these really orange spots here. And let's really push. If it creates a line, that's fine. We want to get up in there. There we go. And we're making the eye more and more dynamic as we go. Drag some. There, we can afford to go a little bit darker over here. Just glaze it in, everybody gets it, you know. Right on down here. There we go. So what you're doing is you add black to something, or white, or gray. You're desaturating a color. You're lowering that chroma down, and eventually you can cross over to a medium chroma. And when you've crossed over to that medium chroma, it starts to pick up these browns. And then if you keep adding and keep adding and keep adding, then you'll cross over to low chroma from the medium. And once you cross over to that low, then you're getting really dark browns. That's where your siennas and things like that over red live. Look at my Prismacolor pencil. It's coming out the end. Old Prismacolor will get you. It will get you. So now I'm just going to push. Getting to my final stage, you know. I just want to kind of glaze a little bit of this orange in there. Just to pick up that chroma I'm talking about right in here. It doesn't really get to be bright up there. There's a couple areas here where it can stand it. There we go. So I'm gonna start getting rid of that yellow. I don't want it to be yellow. There we go. There we go. How dynamic is it getting, right? Let's go ahead and do this eye. Get the pupil done. Really doing a lot of little small circles in that pupil. Letting some of the brightness show out that's there. There's a couple of highlights out in the middle of this. So let's go ahead and start pulling some out. Pulling out a couple features that we like, you know, giving it some, making it a little bit more and more bedazzling as we go. You can come in with some greens, anything you really want. And I like to use grays, like some of these areas. Remember, we can desaturate with gray too. And we can take that orange. If you use a cool gray, which is more like kind of like a bluish color, you really get a lot of that. There we go. There. I'm just gonna glaze now. I don't want this to be that bright, but I didn't want it to. There we go. I added a little gray to it. I want some light coming out of there. Kind of use this orange in these areas, just kind of blend it all in real good. There we go. So we've taken it up to there, and you know, depending on how much light you want reflecting out of this area, you might want to come in and just give it a little bit of shade or tone to it. You know, be more like a tone with this, more like a gray. So there we go. Let's push it. Go real dark. Let's don't be scared. Let's go dark up here. push into some of these lights where these lines and stuff are. There we go. Get a little darker on this image. Now, anywhere that I look at it and it's like, oh, that's pumpkin orange, you know, I just want to go in and give it a little love, pull it back to that brown. Go ahead and fan through this. There. And don't be scared to change it up. I'm trying to be very simple by just using these basic colors here. But don't be scared to go in there and take out something like, you know, this goldenrod or something like that, and come into this where we wanted this to be a little lighter. You know, goldenrod still sits around that orange area. We can come here and throw some of that goldenrod in if we want. You can come back with more yellow. You can bring in more blue. Would really be awesome. You know, even if you went a little dark up here with some of this darker blue. You know, nothing wrong with that either. Knock out some of those orangey areas with the blue versus the black. So you're just kind of taking it off, and, you know, and then come in and start working on the rest of your image and glaze this through. I think having the eyes, I like to do the eyes first. It just gives you so much, you know, getting to start out with that good looking eye, and you can kind of do, you know, use that as your inspiration to keep making good decisions. Don't color with your hand, color with your brain. Start thinking about this stuff as you're going. You don't want your hand getting in front of your brain, because then you have to start making up excuses like I do. It's like, oh, I really, you know, let's come in with some blue around this eye. This eye can't be, it can't all be like this white color. We got to get in there and do something, you know? Let's hug these little bright areas there. Yeah, I need some love in here. I'm using this as electric blue. So let's get up in there. Yeah, we're trying to make a dynamic eye here. Get into this. Get into that pupil with that blue. And if you don't want to use blue, you know, you grab you some gray. The gray's kind of already there, but then you can push it a little further, you know. You come in and just get rid of some of this stuff. This white don't need to be in there. There, it has its place. It really does. White does have its place. And it's going to be right there and maybe a little bit right there, but none of this other stuff needs it. The eye is going to look real without it. There. And then we can come in and kind of glaze this in, and let's work on this little area right here. Let's lighten this load. It's kind of dark over here. Now we're taking brown, because we're calling it brown, and we're going to desaturate it with this white here, right? So we're pushing it over toward white, right? We're adding this in. It's never going to make it to white, let's say, you know, but it's still going to be part of your gray. So we'll just put some of this in there and maybe find some cool spots to kind of glaze in. And I'm focusing on this area where that light hits here and kind of passes through. That's where you want it. And we'll give it, you know, a little love everywhere else too. It's not gonna hurt. I like to play around in these dark areas, a little bit of pizzazz. So let's just kind of glaze this on over into there. I'm taking a kind of a side stance like this right here, because the tooth of the paper is sticking up like this, like fingers or whatever. And when you brush over, when you use your tip of your pencil, let's say this is the plane of your paper, the tip, a sharp tip goes down into every little groove and every little recess, right, in your paper, where if you turn it, it comes through and it, see that void? It only hits the top of the paper, right? So you're just hitting these areas here. You can give it a little bit of a sparkly look to it if you do that. You just kind of cruise across your whole image if you wanted to. Just kind of glaze that through there. Just sprinkle some love through it. There we go. So you can do something like that, you know. And same thing here. I'm just going to kind of glaze this over. Not trying to be all orange down deep in the paper. Just kind of give it some up the top, you know. And work kind of fast with it if you want to. Pushing some, just kind of pushing some of the skin into there. You just start working your way out of there, you know. I don't know how much of this is showing on the camera, but should be enough. And then once you kind of go around and you start playing and pulling out some skin tones and cooling that eye off a little bit around here and the puffy areas and all that stuff, you know, just kind of work loose. Don't try to sit there and do this one little. No, just push through it. You know, you'll come back because you're building an effect. You're not worried about anything else but the effect that you're trying to build. And push a little bit more blue down. See there? Yes, just give it some love. Make it look like an eye. And why not just kind of dull down some of that, just on the tips of the paper. Kind of dull down some of that orange. Push it, let it go more brown. But hey, I hope you enjoy this, and I hope this helps you out. Thank you.